Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. Looks like Harvey brought home a new toy. For this video, I want to talk about the history of this thing. It's kind of interesting, so before we unlock it and take it out for a ride, let's get back to what it is and move forward from there. First of all, this is a John Deere 575 skid steer. It's also the same or very similar to the New Holland 455, and I believe New Holland actually built this thing. If one takes a look at the VIN number right there, this thing will come up as a 1987 model. The auction listing has it as a 1988, so built in 87, put into service 88, something like that. It has 1900 hours on the clock. The hour meter appears to be functioned, and it doesn't appear to be messed with. Nothing up along the instrument panel does appear to be messed with. So it didn't get that many hours in its life, somewhere around 40 hours a year. So I believe this thing actually plowed snow. The person I bought it from, Stanwood Studios, he's on YouTube. He makes videos, and he has some early videos of when he was getting this thing running, so go check him out. He bought it from the state of Massachusetts. It was at a center for mentally disabled people, 250 bed facility, and it was used for plowing the parking lot. And if one looks in the bucket here, you could see it's got kind of a situation to put a plow mount on it. I think originally it came from this place in Connecticut. I'm not sure if the state of Massachusetts owned it for its entire life, which is a possibility given the low hours and so forth. Here's the people who kind of took care of it, and there we go. So that's the background on it, as near as I could tell, when it comes to a lineage point of view. So I got the original paperwork from my friend, and just to go through how I reached the price I paid for it. I more or less paid him all the money he had invested. He bought it at auction for $4,500. I thought, when he told me that, I said, wow, that kind of took a lot of nerve, given that it wasn't running. It had a couple of flat tires, more than one, and it was an as-is, where-is, which means you got to go fetch it. This thing weighs 3,500 pounds, and it was stone cold dead. It wasn't like, oh, you could fire it right up and do something with it. It was dead. Bucket down, dead. Dead battery. How well could you get in here to do much with it, with the bucket down, dead battery? Have I mentioned multiple flat tires and 3,500 pounds? So anyway, he figured out a way between pushing and pulling, wenching, perhaps a profanity or two, to get it onto a trailer and to drag it the 200 miles it took to bring it home. If one actually has to pay for that feat, to send a wrecker someplace to bring home a dead skid steer, I mean, 200 miles, dead of winter, some snow on the ground, I'd imagine you'd be parting with $1,000 to $1,500 for that accomplishment right there. Once he got it home, luckily the tires were good, you know, not dry rotted. So they've been probably changed out once or more than once. Anyway, he managed to get them off and get them someplace where they filled them and sealed them, replaced the valves, and now they're all holding air. Thank God, because once again, once this thing is down, once this thing is on the ground, good luck lifting it up. It should almost, if you're not using them all the time, it should almost be jacked up and put on blocks to keep from putting a crease on the tires. And as a matter of fact, it wouldn't hurt to put something on the tires, a piece of canvas or something, just to keep the sun from baking the heck out of them and making them dry rot even sooner. Once he did all that, he attempted to start the engine, and the injector pump had a problem. If you're familiar with them, it's got 3 pistons. It's a 3-cylinder Yarmar engine. It's got 3 pistons, which pushes the diesel into the engine, into the injector. Anyway, those were seized, and they were seized in the upward position, so he had to open it up, tap those down, lubricate them up so that, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, as you're firing the diesel to make it run. So he managed to get that done. He had to put a new battery into it while he was fooling around with the engine. Obviously, he did a fuel filter, added diesel fuel, changed the hydraulic filter, and another couple of things, air filter. Remember, this thing has a hydraulic system to make the wheels go. It's got a hydraulic system to also raise and lower the bucket. They are separate. After he got it running and started to look at his numbers, obviously he had $4,500 worth of purchase price into it. He had the battery, all the filters, all the fluids, the air cleaner into it. You got to call that another $500. He had the effort of bringing it home, plus the work he did and all of that, and he was like, yo, at some point I got to let this go, and I really don't want to get the price up all that high. Around me, a skid steer ready to go out and work, right, dropped off at your site, is a $10,000 to $15,000 item, especially with this low hours on it. But it's got to be ready to go, no problems. Though this thing starts up, runs, moves, right, you could dig with it, the whole shooting match, it does have a few problems which would keep it off the construction site. It would make it so you don't want it there if somebody from OSHA drops by for a visit. Problem number 1 would be the parking brake does not hold. So if you park it on a steep hill, it's gonna, and shut it all down, unless you dig the bucket in, it's gonna creep its way down the hill. Once again, easy enough to get around. You could just kind of put the bucket down as an emergency brake, but it does not have an emergency brake. That's not working. Problem number 2, which is scary on top of the emergency brake, it has a slight creep. When you let go of the controls, if you don't drop the bucket, it has the slowest creep in the world. So if you put the bucket down, open the door, and climb to go to get out of it, if the bucket doesn't have some weight on it, it could creep along. And quite honestly, depending on where you put your foot and everything else, as it's creeping along, it could hurt you, as in kill you. So those 2 things would keep it off an OSHA site. I don't know if when this thing was manufactured, it kind of had some seat situation so that if you tried to stand up, took your weight off the seat, if that would shut the engine down. I'm not sure about that, but getting back to the no brake and the slight creep, those are 2 things that, once again, you can't get it onto a construction site with. Given that it really couldn't be sold as, a real full price machine, most people would avoid it. It's kind of a backyard machine. The last problem this thing has from a mechanical point of view is the bucket. This bucket is thin. It's got corrosion on it, probably exposure to salt, and just sitting on the ground, mostly being unused. You can see here it liked to hang out with pine trees, all those pine needles on it. It is a quick release bucket, but the mount isn't necessarily that of modern equipment. But the bucket does need some welding. Its last problem is the battery. A couple of electrical last problems. The battery does not appear to be charging, and he never figured out how to turn on the glow plugs, so I'm not sure if the glow plugs work or not. On most of the equipment I have, if they're an old style of glow plug, you turn the key and you kind of hold it, and if you turn it a little more, you get to the position where you engage the starter. Then when you let it go, it kind of goes back 2 times, once for the glow plugs and once for the starter. It kind of springs back twice. Hopefully it starts up and it's running. If not, on your way to the start position, once again, you hit the glow plugs. That's what my tractor inside does. A bunch of these have it so that when you turn it to start, it doesn't even let the starter engage until the glow plugs are happy. And some of them have it so that you turn the key to on and a light comes on, and you don't engage the starter until that light goes off. When the light goes off, you know, you can attempt to start it. Anyway, at this point, we're not sure that the glow plugs are working. It's warm enough during the summer that it's starting right up. And I'm probably gonna put a block heater for water on it, so that if I need to use it for the winter, I just turn on the block heater, get that water nice and warm, and you know, hit the key. They fire right up that way, and they're really happy. Stanwood Studios has the $4,500 into it, the transportation, the repairs, and transportation to my house. So if you put all that together, the number that should be rolling around in your head should be somewhere around $7,000, and that would tell you somewhere around what I paid for it. Now that I own it, what am I going to do with it? I need something with a smaller footprint than my tractor for moving things around. Might sound trivial, but it really isn't, right? My tractor is just under 20 foot long, and when you put forks on it, it makes it, you know, well over 20 foot long, you know, with the backhoe and everything else. And it's really hard to sneak into a position such that you can get underneath something and move it, right? It's just crazy too long. I've accumulated quite a bit of junk over the years, stuff, projects, whatever you want to call this mess, and something that's 24 foot or so long, maneuvering it around this stuff, it can't be done. There'd be a lot of pickup, move out of the way, put down, and then go back to get whatever I was initially after. So with the repairs, I'm probably going to set this up with what I'm going to call a plank, so that I can fold it down, have a platform sticking out the front, and, you know, kind of roll whatever project I want to put on that platform and carry it around. This thing's good for just under 1,300 pounds. Your typical all-terrain vehicle weighs for one of the China Wonders under 200, to some of the heavier 4x4 quads under 1,000. So I should be able to pick them up and move them around, especially if I move the weight part way into the bucket. I also bought this load of asphalt millings, right? It's asphalt that's been ground into very small pieces. I want to use this stuff at the end of the driveway. There's a couple of pads there. The Ford Ranger is sitting on one, and there's another couple of concrete pads there. they're not exactly even to each other. Grass grows up between them. It's a problem. I'd like to get these millings down to the end of the driveway, spread around, and have a good sized a bunch of good sized landing pads down there. And I figure once this stuff is down and packed down well, it'll make it so that the grass doesn't grow up as much in between. Just be a little less hospitable to, you know, animals, rodents, and everything else. Snakes might like this. Maybe not, though. It's be kind of comfortable for them to lie on, perhaps. But anyway, that's a couple of its immediate tasks. So that was a quick background on where this John Deere 575 came from, a little back history and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be more videos on it, particularly my friend Steve teasingly said, yeah, I'd like to see a video of you climbing in and out of the cab. That's really not trivial, because you kind of have to go in front ways and turn around to sit down. At the same time, there's pedals down there that are an uneven surface that you're trying not to get your feet stuck in between the pedals. There's an emergency brake. You can see the handles sticking out to kind of, so you have to kind of go, and then so your feet aren't quite underneath you as you're trying to back down and climb into it. The in and out handles, you know, they're up here. I think with a little practice, one could get good at it. But that's going to take a few tries. He jokingly said, oh yeah, you should make a video of you getting in and out of that. And, you know, the first time you get into something like that, obviously it's awkward. But now that I've been in and out of it a half a dozen times and I haven't gotten any less awkward, I've realized that it's not trivial. One almost needs to practice it.